Do not buy clone fragrances, at least before watching this video, because in this video, I'm gonna completely expose the clone fragrance industry, tell you how they are made, address some crazy rumors that people are spreading on TikTok, and I'm gonna give my honest opinions and criticisms on clone fragrances. This is the best video that you could possibly watch if you are deciding whether clone fragrances are right for you. Now, before I get into the exposing of these companies and some influencers that are promoting these fragrances, I wanna detail why I'm making this video. I made a short, or like a TikTok video, basically telling people do not buy clone fragrances until knowing this. And the basic premise of the video was, I think it's a bad idea to blind buy clone fragrances without even knowing what the original smells like. And the reason for that is if you blind buy a clone fragrance to a niche or kind of ultra high-end fragrance that is not meant for the mass market, you're basically setting yourself up for failure, especially if you're new to collecting fragrances. I always think that the best idea is to go in store, go smell a fragrance and see if you like it, and then make an informed decision. Do you want the original, or is it too expensive? Then buy the clone. That is all I was saying in the video, but a lot of people took it as me saying, I don't like clone fragrances, I'm telling you not to buy clone fragrances, and that's just simply not the case. A lot of people have very low attention spans on this platform. 13% of the people made it through this. I'm not even kidding. 13% of the people made it through the whole video, but then they left a comment before I even got to the whole point of the video and left the video. So I mean, hey, but that also shows me that in the comments, a lot of people are misinformed on what clone fragrances are and what I'm really trying to say. So that's why I wanted to make this video. That's why I wanted to go in depth and tell people exactly how clone fragrances are made, what they are, and kind of talk about a problem when it comes to influencers and these Middle Eastern clones that just came completely out of nowhere. An example of what I'm talking about here is you could be told by someone that Armaf Craze is a very good clone of Parfums de Marly Pegasus, which is a popular niche fragrance. However, if you don't know what Pegasus smells like, a lot of people are gonna smell this that never smelled the original and being like, oh, that is the worst fragrance I've ever smelled. Then they're gonna come to my comments or a forum of a fragrance and just be like, this fragrance sucks. It's the worst fragrance I've ever smelled. I don't know how people could like it. And it's like, well, you're buying a clone of a niche fragrance that's not meant for the mass market and saying it's bad. That's one example of what I mean. Before I rip apart fragrances, no, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to actually rip them apart, but I want to give my opinion on fragrances. When I first started this channel, I was very strongly against clone fragrances. I thought that it was an absolutely horrible thing to do. I was very against it because I'm kind of all about the art of fragrance in itself. That's how I feel about it. I feel like clone fragrances just take someone else's work, someone else's art, and basically rip it off and sell it for cheap. And I'm not really for that in a way. Like, that was kind of my ethical dilemma with clone fragrances. I kind of saw it as wearing like a fake Rolex to the club versus kind of having to save up and go through the trials and tribulations of actually making enough money to save up and buy the real Rolex. That's how I saw it back then. I'm telling you right now, yes, it does play on our psychology, but when you buy the real deal of anything, it's going to elevate your confidence that much more, knowing that you're kind of displaying an achievement of your success rather than faking it. That's just me. I know it does play on a lot of people's psychology, but that's how I saw it before I dove head into buying and collecting all the clone fragrances that were popular. And also on top of that, I probably would have never tried clone fragrances if it wasn't for the viewers. The viewers request this content, and it shows me that a lot of people just do not have the money to spend on a more expensive niche or designer fragrance, and that makes total sense. I am siding with the viewer now, and I never thought that would be possible without you guys showing me that there are some good options. For example, I know for a fact I will never have to buy Bulgari's Tiger because I have my favorite clone, Afnan Trophy Blue. This is more than enough for me. Like, this simply replaces Bulgari Tiger or my need for Bulgari Tiger. And because of that, I've now made it so I don't have to buy fragrances that are way too expensive and out of my budget just to have something that makes me smell good. And I get it now. Like, before I started this channel, I was so against it. And over time, I'm just like, you know what? I'm kind of seeing why they're a good idea, because some of these companies are getting outrageous with what they're charging. Then again, I do see it in their perspective. They run a luxury brand and people want to buy into that luxury and feel like they have that brand, right? That's the same with fragrances. Like, you cannot expect to go into a Louis Vuitton shop and buy a Louis Vuitton shirt for $5 or whatever it costs them to make that fragrance. Their name is slapped on there, and that's what gives people the feel-good feeling when they wear it. That's the same thing with the designer fragrance market. That's how it is, unfortunately, but because of that, a lot of people have looked for alternative methods to buy these fragrances, and I don't blame you. I'm there with you now. now. But also, with that being said, I don't think that cologne fragrances are always the best alternative, because sometimes, genuinely speaking here, from the bottom of my heart, I have encountered some absolutely horrible cologne fragrances that I do not think come even close to replacing the original. And this leads me kind of on to my next point, is that a lot of these fragrances are being hyped up by influencer culture. Nobody in the entire Western world would even know that these companies exist without us influencers. I know it sounds a little harsh, but that's the truth. These influencers, unfortunately, get paid a lot of money to represent these clones to you guys in videos. And I'm not saying that to call out anyone in specific, but genuinely speaking, these clone companies contact us influencers and offer us a lot of money to talk about these products to you. I've never done that personally. I have been offered though, but I know some other content creators are kind of taking that bag. But my issue with it is when an influencer will partner up with a clone fragrance company and not disclose that they were paid a certain amount to promote this product. That is morally wrong in my opinion. And this also leads into my next point about this whole clone wars, okay? Let's say there's like 6 different clones by different companies on Killian's Angel Share, okay? My one that I go to is Kismet Magic. Hear me out here. There will be influencers on the platform that do a clone war. And the one that wins first place, they just surprisingly have an affiliate link in their description for. And I'm not saying that all the time that this is, you know, sus, but just think about that for a second. Now, this leads people to buy that and assume that that one is the best version of that fragrance. And then they go all around the internet telling people,
hey, your clone sucks because you didn't get this one that this popular fragrance influencer said is the best.
And they kind of echo this thought and it just cycles its way through the internet, when in reality, they all pretty much smell exactly the same, you know? So that's an issue, in my opinion. I have a problem with that. And that's why I've decided to make only honest fragrance content. Even when it comes to clones, I don't partner with these companies to tell you about these clones or if they're even any good. And also I see a lot of this happening on TikTok especially, but instead of them mentioning it's a clone, they do something very unique. They don't even tell you it's a clone. So for example, Rayhan Elixir, which is a clone of Jean-Paul Gaultier La Malle Elixir, gets heavily hyped up online saying it's a game changer fragrance, panty dropper that gets all the girls after you. And you see these influencers running around vacation spots getting girls to like basically want to sleep with them because of this fragrance. And yes, they do have affiliate links for this and they sell it in their TikTok shop. I think that's morally wrong, but that's what's happening. And unfortunately, that's led to a lot of distrust in the community, and it's basically collapsing fragrance community as a whole because nobody knows who to trust anymore. And this leads me on to one of the reasons I started dissing clone fragrances in general is because this really annoyed me, okay? So there is a rumor going around TikTok right now about the fact that popular clone companies are hiring the actual perfumers of the fragrance they're cloning to make it for them. They're basically implying that, like, let's say Lattafa is hiring François Demachet from Dior, who made Dior Sauvage Elixir, to make this fragrance. Honestly, that is like the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And then there was some other guy on TikTok that hyped these guys up saying,
guys, it has been proven now that clone fragrance companies are hiring well-known perfumers to make their clones. It's been absolutely proven and you can't disprove it anymore.
oh, it's just so cringe. I can't believe that people are falling for this that easily. Why did this rumor spread? Well, a lot of the fragrance influencers just went to Dubai recently and they were seeing that there are perfumers that are actually very well known working with these clone fragrance houses nowadays. And that is actually true. So for example, Lattafa hired Fanny Ball to make Lattafa Assad Zanzibar, okay? And in these circumstances, they went all out to promote the fact that these perfumers are actually making these original creations for them. This is almost groundbreaking in this kind of clone fragrance market. But they mistook the fact that these perfumers are now working on projects with them as the fact that they are making all of the clones for them, and that these aren't actually low quality clones, but they're actually just the perfumers rebottling their fragrances for cheap. And that's such a complete lie. These perfumers would never, I'm telling you, they would never make their own creations into cheap bottles and sell them for $20. There is so much legal ramifications involved in the making of a fragrance. To actually hire a perfumer, you have to hire them through a flavor house. This flavor house actually houses all the perfumery ingredients that they use to create their said projects. If a clone company was hiring them, do you really think that this flavor house, do you think they're really wanting to sacrifice their hundreds of years of history for this random clone fragrance company out of the Middle East? Like, just, I want people to think realistically. That's all I'm really trying to say. If you wanted to hire a master perfumer, you'd have to go through places like Givaudan, IFF, and you'd have to request this perfumer to make your creation. Those can be extremely expensive, $50,000 to $100,000 just to have this person create a fragrance for you, okay? And then to actually buy a bulk of their quantity of oil, it's even more expensive. It's not cheap at all. It's not as easy as just, hey, come work for us, use your ingredients and recreate that for us and we'll pay you a large sum of money. There's so much contracts involved in this that they would be sued to the ground. They would lose their entire reputation that they've worked their whole lives to make as perfumers. They would not risk it for that. As a matter of fact, clones are in general not even that hard to make, okay? So this leads me on to my next part of the video. How are clone fragrances made? There's two ways. There's the easy way and the hard way. First, I'm gonna go over the easy way and then we're gonna get into the hard way. Now, the easy method may not be how these Middle Eastern fragrance companies are making clones. There could be less known clone companies doing this method, but I guarantee you, once you hear about this method, you're gonna be shocked. And by the way, this is not a sponsored portion of the video here. I just wanna show you what they would do. So what they would do is come to a place like wellingtonfragrance.com. They would go to the section fragrance oils. And then what they would do is they would click on designer. What this area of the website is it's an area that you can buy in bulk mass quantities of fragrance oils to make clones. They've already pre-mixed it for you. All you have to do is dilute it. So for example, you can find a pre-mixed version of Dior Sauvage. You can find a pre-mixed Tom Ford, Tobacco Vanille. You can find Creed's Aventus. Let's say, for example, I wanted to make a dupe of Creed's Aventus, right? I would come here, I would click this fragrance, and then you can see they sell these amount of quantities. You can get it in 16 ounce, you can get it in 8 ounces, you can get it in 25 pounds. And in general, this is not an expensive way to do it. For $517, you could have 25 pounds of already pre-mixed Creed Aventus oil. All that you really need to do is order this 25 pounds and dilute it, and then you can sell it. That's what I'm saying, is it's that easy. And I can guarantee you a lot of these popular companies that you guys know about are doing this and you just don't have any idea. That's a big problem, in my opinion, because you could literally just do this yourself right now from a website like this and get fragrances for so cheap and sell them yourself, and you don't even have to buy the clones to begin with. This would probably actually be cheaper per unit. Now, the second method, let's say a company like Wellington that I just showed you, or how do these clone companies find out how to replicate these fragrances? Because like I said, they are not hiring actual perfumers. It's just way too expensive. So what are they doing? How are they finding out how these fragrances are made? So what they're doing is gas chromatography mass spectrometry. So basically, for short, that is GCMS. They're using a GCMS machine. And what this will do is it will actually give them a readout of exact ingredients that were used and in what quantities to make a fragrance. So in short, how this machine works is basically you would take a needle, you would pop open this fragrance, extract a certain amount in this needle, you would now inject this into this machine, this GCMS machine, and in the shortest way possible to describe this, what happens is there are two sections to this machine. The first is the gas chromatography section, and what this really does is it heats the perfume, turning it into a gas. Now this gas goes into different columns that separates these chemicals based on their size. Then it tosses over to the MS section, or the mass spectrometry section of the machine, and that measures each of these chemicals' mass. Then at the end of this process, you basically get an entire printout that shows you exactly what ingredients are in this fragrance and what portions or percentages were used. This is what is being done at most of these clone fragrance houses. It's relatively cheap to buy one of these machines. It's like, I think, $30,000 on the low end, but it's all the way up to $250,000 on the high end. With how much they make per day, this machine is well worth it for them. If you want a full in-depth video where someone goes way more in depth and definitely a lot more scientific, I would definitely check out Sam Macer. He has a video called How Perfumers Reproduce Perfumes with GCMS. So I'll link that in the description if you guys want to check that out. It goes way more in depth than I am here, but I think that's definitely worth a look. If they have this readout, why is it not always accurate? Because sometimes you're gonna get a clone that absolutely sucks. Trust me, with the amount that I've tried, I get clones that are not good. And simply, it's because of this, okay? In general, designer fragrances are a lot easier to replicate because they use ingredients that kind of fit into a certain budget category. They do not want to spend too much because they want high profit margins with spending as little as possible. That's what they do. That's why designers are known to be synthetic and not high quality. The harder ones to replicate are the niche fragrances that use natural oils, because these are not cheap. So why you will realize is there's a difference in quality is, for example, it's more expensive to actually get a fragrance oil that smells like natural lavender than it is to replicate it synthetically. So what they will do is go the cheaper route and replicate it synthetically. Yes, every fragrance has synthetics in there, but I'm telling you, for example, just so you understand what I'm trying to say, so most of these clone companies will kind of sacrifice the quality of their ingredients so that they're able to actually hit certain budget categories, because they're selling these fragrances for like $20 to $50. They need as high as a margin as they can get, and they can definitely not get that if their ingredients list is as high as some of these niche fragrance companies. Now, with all this being said, maybe I have ruined clone fragrances for you, but that was not the intention of this video. It was basically just to educate people on what they're getting into when it comes to clone fragrances. There are some pros to clone fragrances and there are some cons, but you have to figure out if a clone fragrance is right for you. I want this video not to be to tear people down who buy clone fragrances, and not to disrupt the entire fragrance industry like I said I would in this video by exposing the market. That's a little bit of clickbait, but I just want to have a discussion about clone fragrances. I want to know what you guys actually think about clone fragrances. I want you to tell me your honest opinion. If you think I'm wrong here, if you think it's okay for fragrance influencers to sell you a clone fragrance and not tell you that's what it is and tell you it's a life changer. I want to hear from you guys to tell me exactly your thoughts on fragrance clones. Tell me your favorite clones in the comments below. If you guys appreciate and got any value from this video, I really would appreciate it if you hit that like button, subscribe for more honest fragrance content, and definitely check out my video where I talk about my 10 favorite clone fragrances in my entire collection. There's some bangers over there. You can get there right here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you over there.